Thank you, thank you. We're live with you once again on another Johnny Torch live broadcast number 276. That's the spirit. And Torch News Roundup number 304. Yes, how exciting! Don't mention it. Well, we have another broadcast for you today, burning the midnight oil pretty much here in stately Torch Tower, looking down upon the fair metropolis below. It's hopefully I have the energy to go for a full hour here. I don't know, but we've got quite a few subjects to broach. I'm sure a few more rants will be had, and we've got a lot to talk about. So let's just get started. You know the deal. You know the routine. We've got to plug the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye. This is the issue that I'm working on right now, casebook number 14, and it's coming along rather well. I mean, the inking is taking incredibly long, but again, I just want it to be as good as it's going to be. As good as I can possibly make it, I am going to try to make it. And the inking probably is almost done. Every single time I get through inking a page, I think that was the last page, because I don't do them sequentially. I ink them sort of how I feel at the moment. Do I want to ink bullets? Do I want to ink General Diesel? I'll find a page that kind of suits my mood. And then when I'm through with that page, I go back and I say, well, that's the last page to ink. And then I go see 3 more pages that need to be inked. So again, it's a long process, but we're nearing the end of it. I'm pretty sure. I think a couple of weeks ago I said it was going to take about 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks today. So I'm pretty sure we're at the very end of the inking stage. But, you know, it's a long process. We've got coloring coming up next. I'm excited about doing the lettering because, you know, you get to play with the verbiage there a little bit in the dialogue. That's my favorite part of it. Drawing is fun. The dialogue is fun. The inking and the coloring, not so much. The coloring is nice because you could see it come to life. Now, if I just had this image in front of you right here as a black and white image, that wouldn't do as much for me as seeing it in full color. That's why I take great pains to make sure that I get the coloring as accurate as possible to my mind's eye of what it should look like. And, it makes it pop. It comes out extremely well. And so, as usual, the orders of business, you can check the link in the description below. You can find my website. You can find me on Twitter. You can find the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon on Global Comics. If you go to my website, you'll find all the links. Indie Planet, Global Comics and Indie Planet, pretty much the only places to go right now. I might try to expand that a little more in the future. I was saying on Twitter, I'm toying with the idea of doing another, crowdfunder. Not a big fan of that, to be honest with you, because I would rather have the book done and then have people, order it after it's done. I don't like promising a product that I'm in the middle of making. But I don't know. I also talked about how I was at a crossroads, and I released a bunch of some of the, AI constructs that I was trying to do. I didn't know if I was going to make like a trailer or maybe clips from the last issue 13, and have them sort of in live action. It was just something fun to fool around with. But since Grok went up against a paywall, Grok Imagine is now behind a paywall. You really can't do anything with it. And I haven't gotten to another, because I'm not going to pay. I haven't gotten to another AI site yet, because I want to focus on getting this book done. And I'm sure I'll get this issue done and I'll get the next issue done. But I'm kind of at a crossroads wondering if I should focus on doing some more AI and just make an animated series. The problem with that is I'd have to go back and do the first 5 stories over again, what will be 6 once this one's done. And that's going to take a lot of time. It's probably going to take some money to do it right, because, if you do it for free, not only do you not have that many credits or whatever to do each day, but you also have to factor in there's probably going to be watermarks. There's, things that are less professional than if you pay for it. But I think the problem is that the parade is kind of passed by indie comics. I think they're sort of on the outs now. And what we have is the AI being the wave of the future. And again, I've always said I'm not going to write a story with AI. I'm not going to design or draw characters with AI, but I will animate characters. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as, it's reasonably close to my artwork. But that's something that probably is in the future. I mean, that's something that's at least 10 years off before I'll probably be able to be doing it. So again, for the near future, I'm going to continue on with the creation of the comics. That's not going to change. But I do wonder if at some point it will just be easier to try to make an animated series. And I don't know, stick it on YouTube. Maybe I could find a place for it where it will be more profitable. I don't know. But these are all questions I'm going to have to be asking myself in the near future. Until then, check out The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye. You can buy them again on Indie Planet for the hard copies. You can get Global Comics, a digital download. And just check it out, because it's really the greatest comic book that nobody knows about. And as I always say in my Twitter advertisements, these books are not going to read themselves. So they need you. They need you to read them. It's like Toy Story or whatever, where the toys need someone to play with them. Well, these books need to be read. They're not going to read themselves. So there you have it. And, once again, we've got a really great show for you here today, I hope. Before we get to it, though, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And we are going to look at our mailbag segment. Yes, it's a mailbag segment. That is where you, the viewer, leave me comments in some of the videos or shorts or live streams I've done, and I read them. So we've got a couple of them today. We got about 3, and they are very nice, complimentary. And let's see. The first one, I'm trying to take them sequentially. I don't know. I played around with this a little bit so I can actually show you them on the screen. So let's see if it works. There it is. All right. 9 days ago, Fernando Rosales left a comment on my short about Wonder Woman possibly being cast, and I was having trouble with the actress's name, and he says it's pronounced Dominici. So Eva Dominici, I suppose, is the way you pronounce her name. Again, we don't have any confirmation yet that she's playing Wonder Woman, but it seems to be the odds on tap is that it's going to be her. And I hope it is. I hope it is. I think she looks a lot. If you don't remember last show we did about 2 weeks ago, that was part of it. And you could still find the short out there somewhere, and check her out and see what you think about her. But I think she'd make a good Wonder Woman. I really have never seen her act, but, just on sight, I think she looks like she'd make a good Wonder Woman. All right, another one here. This one, I don't have the name in front of me right here, and I think I clipped it off. I don't know where it is because I ran out of characters here, but I did get a comment here from the last live stream we did, and we were talking about Mel Gibson's The Resurrection of the Christ, and I was saying there's a lot of speculation about what's going to be going on because there's a lot of characters that are being suggested. There's Abraham, King David. I've seen people talking about this, and I'm not sure how many of these Old Testament characters are going to be in there. Now, the commenter's name is Ethror9120. All right, so I wanted to make sure I got your name in there. So, and the comment is, there's a video floating of Mel presenting the actors of Adam and Eve to some monks at Athos. So it is fairly safe to assume we will see them, and therefore other Old Testament characters in the movie. So Adam and Eve is even going to be in the movie. This is going to be an epic of all time. I mean, basically, it's called The Resurrection of the Christ, but it's going to basically span everything from Adam and Eve, ostensibly till the end of the world. I mean, I think I remember hearing them say that it's going to be like from the Garden of Eden until the death of the last apostle, which would be John. And this is like an amazing undertaking for Mel. And he spent like 20 years really cogitating about this and working on this subject. And I have to say, I'm pretty excited for it. And we get some more news about this later on in the show. So we'll talk about that again later on in the show. And finally, last week we didn't do a live stream, but I did a Daredevil Born Again Season 2 video review where we reviewed the whole season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. And it's doing pretty well. It's getting some good traction. I got one comment on it. Likely it was on one of the shorts, but the comment is from Hebrew Carter 5 days ago and said, "This performance is worth sharing. It made my day better." Well, if you're talking about me doing the review, then I appreciate that. If you're talking about Daredevil Born Again Season 2, then, well, yeah, that's great praise, because it was a pretty good show, a pretty good season this year. I liked it a lot, very much myself. So once again, thank you everybody for your comments. The shorts have been helping the channel out immensely. We got a handful of new subs. Again, I thank everybody who subs to the channel. I thank everybody who watches the shows, and especially the shorts. The shorts do very well. I get hundreds and sometimes over 1,000 views on a short. And that's because StreamYard, which I have to say, StreamYard, I mean, I'm not kissing up here. Everybody knows me, knows I call them as I see them. But StreamYard is, by leaps and bounds, continuing to make this platform better. I can't say that about anything else, really. Most other things are stagnant. I mean, Twitter is okay. It's been treating me okay. I've gotten a little ground lately in getting a few more subs, followers, whatever. And, the reach sometimes it's been getting out there a little more. But I feel like with StreamYard, they're pretty consistent with trying to come up with new innovations. They're giving us, background music, and then another time they're giving us special effects, and another time so I mean, StreamYard is really the place to be. And so I'm very grateful that they're, making such innovations here with the platform, because it really does help out for someone like me that doesn't pay for all the perks and all the bells and whistles. I can still get a pretty good, program out of this software. So that's another link in the description below, which is, if you're interested in StreamYard, you can check it out by clicking the link in the description below. Yes, it's like a commission-based thing, but it would help me out as well. All right, so let's get to the show proper now. Let's take a look at what we're going to talk about. I said I was going to talk about some reviews. I was going to talk about some of the things that I'd been watching recently. And we've got a little green tea as the beverage of choice tonight. First up, we've got I finally broke down and watched Deadpool and Wolverine. And again, a little background. I'm not a huge fan of Ryan Reynolds' version of Deadpool, because it's a little too vulgar, quite honestly. And I tried to watch some of the first one, and it was a tough watch. I didn't really get through much of it. I kind of skipped through most of it and just got to the end when it was the final battle or whatever. But didn't watch number 2 at all. So I really didn't know what was going on with this franchise. But I did want to see Hugh Jackman's triumphant return. He's in the original costume. And, Hugh Jackman, I'm always there for. I mean, I watched him in Logan. I didn't like Logan. I thought it was a very depressing, violent, not very enjoyable movie. It's the grim kind of somber tale that turns on fanboys for some reason. I'll never understand why. This was completely the opposite. Of course, Hugh Jackman is great in any situation as Wolverine. I mean, the guy, that's why they really can't replace him. He's just so darn good at this role that no matter what they do, he's always good in it. They can't coax him out of the role, really, because, I mean, who are you going to replace him with? I mean, if you try to get an actor that looks like from the page Wolverine, there's really not that kind of charisma with that character. He brought sort of his own level of charisma, and I loved seeing the costume. The action was really good. Some of the comedy landed for me, some didn't. I mean, some of it is funny the way that these are two like indestructible characters that just keep going at it because Deadpool can't keep his mouth shut, and and Logan has a short fuse as it is. And so a lot of those scenes played really well, and I enjoyed it, seeing the interplay with these two guys. Again, a lot of swears and a lot of vulgarities that I didn't care for. Um, they also they brought back a lot of characters. Now surprisingly, I didn't really trouble myself too much with this film. I mean, when it came out, I did know that Wesley Snipes was going to come back. I knew that they brought back Chris Evans as Johnny Storm. I didn't know they brought back Jennifer Garner's Elektra, and it really felt like a love letter to the Fox films in that era. And they they brought Channing Tatum in as Gambit, which he was long rumored to be playing that role. And watching him in the movie, I can kind of see why they never made that movie. I don't know if they were like purposefully trying to make him look like foolish, but it seemed like that was the reaction for me anyway. It was like, because it's a comedy, I guess you can get away with it, but it didn't really ring true to me. It felt like Channing Tatum as Gambit. It didn't really feel like Gambit, but that's kind of the fourth wall breaking of a Deadpool movie, I suppose. And I don't know. I was kind of lost about, I don't know. Is this supposed to be the same Logan as the Logan from the Logan movie? Is this the same Logan from Days of Future Past? I really don't know. It's a multiverse thing. The movie kind of picks up with the multiverse time bureau or whatever that was in the Loki show. And it was an interesting choice of villain where they had Cassandra Nova, I believe is the character's name. I don't know. There's so many bald women in Marvel comics as villains, I think. I don't know. I don't really remember her, but apparently she was the sister of Charles Xavier. I guess he had a twin sister. And in X3, they suggested he had a twin brother, which I don't really know the lore that well. I mean, I appreciate these guys that know chapter and verse, all the stuff that's going on with these things. I mean, I'm fans of the comics, and I pretty much know and own the popular runs, but that's about the size of it. So I don't really know a lot of this stuff. But again, it was a good time. It was a good time. Again, it's not entirely my cup of tea, but I would probably give it like 2 stars, maybe. I mean, 2 stars because I'm probably not going to watch this one again. I mean, if I do, it's going to be for the actors again because I like Hugh Jackman, and I have a begrudging admiration for the talent of Ryan Reynolds. I mean, this is not the way I would prefer Deadpool, but he sort of got that merc with a mouth quality that I guess this character needs. And apparently they are going to use him again some more in the future, but not really in a Deadpool movie. So there you have it. Just a quick brief review because I can't make a full review out of that, honestly. And I got another 5-minute review coming up next. This is from Darth Maul, Shadow Lord. I watched this show too. And again, this is another show that I really can't give you more than 5 minutes. So I'm just going to string all these in the Torch News Roundup. But Shadow Lord basically tries to explain the time between the last time we seen Maul, which I don't remember when that was, up to the time from Solo where he's like the capo regime. I don't know, maybe he's like the Godfather at that point, but he's got his own crime family and he's like running it. Crimson Dawn, I guess. Is that what he has at that point? I don't know. But this was a entertaining show. It was pretty fast paced. They didn't really let you get bored. They didn't let you get tired of it. It was really sort of one thing after another escapade, which is what Star Wars really should be. You know what I mean? Star Wars is always fast paced. Of course, George Lucas' famous words of faster and more intense really goes here. Now, the problem I have with Star Wars, particularly in animation, but in a sense, all across the board, when it's not the saga, when it's not the six films, and there's only six films in the saga, it's very disposable entertainment-y for me. I mean, I watched every episode of Clone Wars. I don't remember more than like maybe three. I don't really remember them because they were disposable to my mind. And I sit there, I watch them, I enjoy them at the time. I never think of them again. I never go back to them again. So I know that Maul had a brother that was like an orange skinned, whatever they call his species. I can't remember that now either. And he was killed by the Emperor. The Emperor basically wants to kill Maul because he moved up, to Tyrannus and then to Vader. And he's sort of like the odd man out here. So he has to find something else to do now that he can't really be a Sith. But then again, he's not going to work for the Emperor. So he sort of comes up the ranks as a gangster and he's taking out syndicates. And it was really fun to see, sort of the ingenuity of the character. He's sort of like remembered as a henchman from Phantom Menace, but he's pretty adaptable in this case and can do things like this. And if there was anything that I really could say that I had against it, was I felt that it was kind of predictable. And I hate to be that guy. It's a prequel, so we know it's predictable. I mean, I kind of knew from the beginning. He has sight sets on sort of a teenage pink Twi'lek that is a Padawan to another Jedi Master, and he kind of feels that he can sway her to the dark side, and it's going to work eventually. I mean, the show's called Maul. He's not going to fail. And in the same way, he fights Vader, which, he's going to fail. I mean, they're not going to make Darth Vader look bad when Vader's sort of at his prime at this point, and Maul is sort of clinging on to whatever, respectability he has left. And he fights him, he gives him pretty much all he can take, but, you never really feel like Vader's in danger. And I felt like Vader, they didn't let him speak. And I think that's a problem when you have Vader and you don't let him speak, because I don't know why they don't let him speak. They didn't want to pay the James Earl Jones estate. I don't know. Because, people are strange that way. They're kind of worried, or, we're using his voice and he's no longer alive. People are hung up on those kind of things. But I feel like when he doesn't talk, Vader, he just seems like a robot. And when Maul strikes him in the shoulder, he doesn't even, it just doesn't feel right for some reason. And he doesn't have to be a chatterbox, but I mean, he does have to at least show that he's more than a robot. You know what I mean? If he was like that in the movies, we probably wouldn't have thought he was actually a person in there at all. We get a little glimpse at the origin of Maul, I guess, but just the faintest glimpse, which I found really interesting. The story, I don't remember too many of the names of the characters here. Let's see, there was Daki was the Jedi Master. Devin was the apprentice that Maul manages to sway. Two Boots was the robot, and of course we had Lawson, which I guess is maybe named after Dennis Lawson. He's sort of the cop that's struggling to make his way for his kid, and his wife left him for the Empire and wants a job at the Empire. It was a really interesting premise. They're kind of got one foot still in the seedy underbelly of Coruscant type thing, and and Maul has this little critter gangster guy that he's sort of manipulating, but the guy was the head of his own faction, and then he sort of has to work for Maul. It was some interesting stuff. Again, I quite liked it. I would love to see what happens next. If this gets another season, which it should. I would give it 4 stars. I mean, I think it's, if you like Star Wars and have any interest in this part of the legacy, what happened with Maul, it's definitely worth a watch. And again, it doesn't really feel like it outweighs its welcome. I think it's 10 episodes, I think. Maybe one or two of them are a little slow, but for the most part, it's pretty much an action-packed adventure with a great character that, didn't quite get his due in the movie quite so much, but we get to, see him in action now. I wonder how this would be at the movies if they could have condensed this and made it a movie. This probably would have done better than Mandalorian Grogu, which Mandalorian Grogu I'm excited for. I'm going to see that next week. And so probably this time next week you'll hear my review. I mean, a lot of people are just like dying for Mandalorian and Grogu to fail. Frankly, I don't see it. I don't know why. I mean, it's the first Star Wars we've gotten in like 7 or 8 years on the big screen, and they're just trying to ease us back with sort of a simple little story. I don't really think everything needs to be this huge blockbuster, tentpole film. You could just put out some, minor storyline that, is just for fun and dare I say, for the kids. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure, more next time. All right, so that's Maul, Shadow Lord, and we'll move on to the final in our mini review segment here, which is Red Sonja. Yeah, I picked up a look at Red Sonja on Tubi a couple of weeks ago, and honestly, it was kind of what I expected it to be. I mean, I for starters, let's do a little history here. I have read a share of Red Sonja. I mean, I wouldn't call myself the biggest expert on the Red Sonja lore. This film, I'm pretty sure, does away with a lot of the lore. And I did see the original movie when I was like 8 or 9 years old. I thought it was cool. Arnold plays, I think, like a Conan substitute, because I think the rights were in different hands or what have you. So he really couldn't play Conan in a Red Sonja movie, but he played everything but Conan in name. And it was an interesting movie. Bridget Nielsen, I believe this came after Rocky IV, in sort of her biggest role, post Rocky IV at least. And, I should check it out again, but I thought it was pretty good, remembering it from when I was a kid. But this movie, it feels like, as I expected, and anybody that seen the trailer or parts of it would expect, it feels like a Sci-Fi Channel movie circa 2002. It's kind of old, early millennium, special effects and sets that are not particularly, impressive. We meet Red Sonja sort of as a nature girl. Her biggest concern is for her horse, and that's how it sort of begins the story. She's trying to get her horse back. The beginning of the movie basically deals with her as a gladiator, which I guess is their way of trying to explain how she became proficient in sword fighting. She surprisingly doesn't use the sword that much in the movie. For someone that was dubbed the She-Devil with a sword, she doesn't particularly use it very often in the film. And the villain was probably the biggest letdown. He's sort of like some pretentious little twit that, I kind of get what they were trying to go for here, but it really wasn't that interesting. He's sort of like an intellectual, and he wants to kind of break away from the old order of the barbarians basically running things, and he wants to sort of be a intelligent leader that is trying to take over the lands or what have you. Wallace Day, whom many may remember fondly from the series Krypton, shows up as the female antagonist, looking like Lady Gaga. So that was kind of disappointing, because she showed up on Batwoman 2 at a point, and she's a very lovely girl, and just she's unrecognizable here. And she sort of gets a character arc. I guess I won't spoil it, but um, she really deserved more screen time. I kind of feel like I could say that for a lot of these characters, that they don't really give the characters that you want to see the screen time that you wish they had. And I'll leave it at that, because another character that I could say that to is Luca Pasqualiano. You might remember him as D'Artagnan in BBC's The Musketeers. He makes a welcome appearance as pretty much the only character with charisma in the movie. But again, he doesn't really get too much focus. He's very charismatic, very, the only actor really that you kind of want to see him hang around, and he leaves the stage fairly early on. Unfortunately, he doesn't really stick around to make a big impression. I guess that's in order for Sonja to, carry the load on her own shoulders, which she does pretty well. Matilda Lutz, that's the name of the actress. Matilda Lutz, she does well enough in the role, I think, given what's offered to her. She only really starts to feel like Sonja in the second half of the movie, after the gladiator stuff. And but she's only required to glare stoically or repine over her horse. There really isn't a whole lot for her to do, acting wise. This is not really a lot of heavy lifting here. Besides Luca from Musketeers, her charges are just sort of central casting's answer to middle-aged barbarians. I mean, it's like they got a couple of guys that 10 bar and say, hey, take off your shirt and wave an axe around. And, you know what I mean? That's just central casting. They didn't really put a lot of thought in, and then they had warrior women and so forth. I don't know. The extras weren't very convincing. Again, she's a pretty enough girl to make a decent Sonja, but she's basically covered in mud or extremely disheveled for most of the movie. So you really don't get to see her at her best. And this is a problem with a lot of movies. And we're going to talk about Supergirl in a little while. And it's the same thing there, too. I mean, I think it's purposefully done, but it's like the thing nowadays is to try to de-glam the actress so that she looks like she just got out of bed. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't pay money to go see a movie and then you want to see the actress look like she just woke up. You know what I mean? You've got to, glam them up a little bit. Now, she gets her hair darkened in the last act because she goes through some kind of transformation, but it's still a far cry from the luxurious locks from the comic that she was known for. As you see in this image here, she gets her 10 minutes in the classic metal bikini, which is what she's known for. They end up putting her into more elaborate armor later, but she's basically in this only for a few minutes just to sort of amuse the crowd in the gladiatorial games. There's a pretty interesting scene where she fights a Cyclops. It's probably the biggest action set piece that's kind of amusing. The film ends with a post-credits tag promising a much more exciting sequel with Red in a tavern, drinking and doing target practice. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that sequel will probably never happen. I don't imagine this film did very well. I think it got a limited release, and it's on Tubi after like about 6 months. They probably should have led with that story. I don't know why we needed an origin of Red Sonja, especially when it's done this poorly. I would say this film reminded me mostly of the old Jonah Hex film, the one with Megan Fox. Because, it's not really accurate to the comics. It's not even really that good. But I feel like they had the framework there to make it a much better film if they had applied themselves. As it stands, they could make a better sequel. I would like to see a better sequel if they are still, willing to go through with that. I doubt it's going to happen. Originally on Twitter, I think I gave this one 2 stars out of 5. I am probably being a little generous with that. That's another one where I'm probably not going to watch this movie again. But again, I have some appreciation for some of the actors. I think Matilda Lutz was pretty good. Wallace Day was good, even though she didn't have much to do. Luca Pasqualiano, again, very charismatic. I'd love to see him more in the film, or maybe return in the sequel. But as it stands, not great. I mean, if you really have nothing to do with your time and it's late and you can't go out and do anything else, you could throw this one on, and you'll probably forget it within the first 15 minutes. All right, so that's the brief movie reviews there. And let's see what's next on the agenda. All right. I've got to look at my notes here because they're all over the place. All right. Next up, let's talk about this. Whoa, Black Betty, Boop-a-Doop. All right, so this is the big story that has been going around here. Now, this comes on the heels of the Odyssey. And I haven't talked about the Odyssey too much because I honestly don't care a whole heck of a lot about the Odyssey. I mean, Christopher Nolan is doing a film, and he is doing many diverse race changes to the characters from the Odyssey. He's doing a lot of changes with transgender actors and so on and so forth. And a lot of people are losing their mind over it. I mean, it's disappointing to me, but I really have no interest in the film because, I could go see one of the hundreds of other films that talk about the Odyssey or Greek mythology or whatever. It's like Shakespeare in that regard, where, all right, if you don't want to see Shakespeare done in modern day, or a, racially diverse cast playing in a Shakespeare movie that takes place in, Denmark or Italy or whatever, just don't watch that one, and you can find like probably 700 others that were made in the last 100 years. But with a character like this, with Betty Boop, who was sort of one of a kind, I mean, she was one of the first cartoon female characters that became very popular in her day. And again, there was a day where things were sort of racially insensitive, to say the least. And I think that's another reason why they're trying to probably atone for some of those original sins of animation with race changing Betty Boop. Now, I'll read the copy here. Let's see. Quinta Brunson will develop and star in a feature adaptation of the century-old cartoon Betty Boop, working with the grandson of Betty Boop creator Mark Fleischer of Fleischer Studios and grandson of Max Fleischer, working with Brunson's Fifth Chance production on the forthcoming Betty Boop movie. The film will trace the origin and evolution of Betty Boop through the perspective of her creator, examining the relationship between the artist and his creation, as that icon begins to take on a life of its own. Vanity notes, this was from Vanity, I guess, quoting that the movie's potential to be similar to the surrealistic concept of Greta Gerwig's Barbie. That's really what this is all about. They're trying to glom on to the craze with Barbie, and let's try to get some old female cartoon character and try to do something with it. Anyway, the Betty Boop movie is, let's see, they're planning on releasing it in 2028. The thing about this is I don't think this is even going to get anywhere. I think they'll look back at this in about 10 months and say, what happened? It's in development hell. Because only two things can happen to make this get off the ground. Either it's going to languish in development hell for the next 30 years and nothing will ever come of it, or they're going to do like they did with the Barbie movie, speaking of Barbie, and they're going to, like when Barbie had Amy Schumer as Barbie, she was the one tapped to play Barbie, and cooler heads prevailed. People realized that nobody was going to buy tickets to see Amy Schumer's Barbie, and they went with a traditional actress to look like Barbie. Margot Robbie, beautiful, blonde, statuesque, actually looks like Barbie. And so this is kind of what I think is going to happen here. I think this is really not going to go very far. There's not really a big demand for a Betty Boop movie, I don't suppose. So it's not like people are going to go see this either way. The only way that you get people interested in a Betty Boop movie is that if you hire the proper actress. And of course, you have to have a semi decent screenplay. But again, you put Sydney Sweeney in a short black wig and a skimpy red dress, and people are going to go see it. So basically, the Betty Boop movie, it's going to be DOA unless they do something like that. They got to take, the current it girl, which in this case would be Sydney Sweeney, like 5 years ago was Margot Robbie, and just, like I think I could write the script myself. Just make it a feel good family comedy, period piece, like Dick Tracy, very colorful. The Roaring 20s or whatever it was called. Like Little Orphan Annie, I would make it a musical where we have some music, some tap dancing. I mean, Betty Boop was originally supposed to be a flapper, and the idea is like, Betty Boop is trying to find love. She ends up becoming a star, finds out it's not what it's cracked up to be, and then marries some poor but honest schnook at the end of the movie. I mean, that's basically the movie. The movie writes itself. People will see that, I think. I don't think people are going to be interested in this kind of thing. But again, we've got Hollywood that is obsessed with race changes. They're just going to keep race changing the characters, the beloved characters. That's not going to go away with the death of the woke era. That's always going to be there because people have, like I said, they have this fixation for, we need to atone. There wasn't enough black characters back then, so we have to adapt them into the old white characters into black characters. And nobody really wants to see that. There's nothing that prevents you from creating new black characters that could be compelling and interesting, whatever. But they want to chase the name recognition of a character that's been around since before your grandpappy was in diapers. You know what I mean? So again, I find this to be very disheartening that this is still happening. But again, let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think this thing has a snowball's chance? Do you think if, like I said, that they actually apply themselves and try to, have a good script and a appropriate actress, do you think a Betty Boop movie would fly? Do you think it'd get off the ground? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Another thing we've heard a lot, though, since the story broke, is that a lot of people, again, trying to cope, trying to get through this, is saying that Betty Boop was originally inspired by a black dancer or performer on stage or something. The truth of the matter is, let me see if I can pull it up here. Betty Boop was inspired by Helen Kane, who did the famous Boop-a-Doop routine on stage with the the baby voice and the Boop-a-Doop and that sort of famous styling, so to speak, was done in the 20s, and it was sort of inspired by a couple of different sources, but she was the most popular, I think, at the time. A lot of people are trying to say that a dancer or whatever named Esther Jones, also known as Little Esther or Baby Esther, who was a sort of a young singer entertainer, was the inspiration for Betty Boop. But come to find out, what the reason why that story came to around is because Helen Kane tried to sue Max Fleischer, saying that he was infringing on her act and that she deserved royalties because essentially he made Betty Boop look like her, which it kind of does look like her. And Fleischer responded by saying that Betty Boop was a composite of different women and different singers, different actresses. I guess Clara Bow was one, and they brought in Esther Jones to be sort of one of them that he was basing it on. But of course, this was just to keep him from being sued. And anyway, either way you look at it, if Esther Jones was somehow an inspiration, the character herself was white. So again, you're saying that one part of a composite inspiration for the character, it just doesn't really feel like you've got a leg to stand on there, because Betty Boop has traditionally always been white. There was one cartoon that introduced Popeye where she was a Hawaiian and doing a Hawaiian dance, and they had her looking tanned. But apart from that, I think she was always portrayed as white. I think in the earliest cartoons she was a poodle. So there you have it for the Legend of Betty Boop. If you wanted to know it, that's basically the story. So again, once again, the We Was Kangs crowd is trying to claim Betty Boop. That is our latest struggle. And again, like I said, I wish I could say because the woke era is dying that this is ever going to go away. It's not, because the We Were Kangs crowd is always going to try to do this to every influential character in the American history. That's just the way it is. And unfortunately, it's not going to end anytime soon. All right, so let's take another look here at what else we've got. This is our top story. Let's talk about this one. Let's get this one over with, because this is driving me crazy. Now, we have. Let me see if I can pull up the copy. All right, we have Millie Alcock, and we have the a couple of new TV spots. And this one of them here is her in the spacecraft that she came from Krypton on, and she's being welcomed by Superman. Similar thing happened in the Melissa Benoist show. Basically, Superman finds her in the pod, which you would expect he would do. I mean, they have some versions where she's just like wandering around nude and he has to find her, which I think is incredibly poor taste. But this is like a more wholesome way where he finds her and she's with Crypto. I have to say, I don't really like the idea that she owns Crypto. I mean, she could sort of take care of him and have a bond with him or whatever, but I don't really see why they made Crypto her dog. And, people complain about, he doesn't look like Crypto from the comics. Well, I don't care. But I do care that, like, he's supposed to be Superman's dog. She's supposed to have Streaky the cat. So, I don't know about that. But in the commercial, he says, "Hi there, your powers are going to start kicking in right about now," Superman says to her. And I was saying on Twitter, I really hate when they do this. When they do, Superman's powers are a burden. I hate that because that's a Marvel trope. Marvel is the ones that are supposed to do the hero's powers are a blessing and a curse. Superman is a wish fulfillment character. He's not supposed to be, with the weight of the world on his shoulders. I know that some stories have played that up, but I honestly don't think that really is or should be Superman's forte, is the weight of the world on his shoulders. And because I hate when they do my heat vision is on and I can't turn it off, and I'm learning about my powers and they're wildly out of control, because I always felt like Superman's powers are like he needed to learn how to use them by flexing the right muscle. Like, I don't think like in Man of Steel where it's like he was using his X-ray vision and he couldn't help but use his X-ray vision. I think if anything, it would be more difficult for him to use his X-ray vision. He has to learn how to turn that on. He has to learn what muscle to flex in order to use his X-ray vision. He has to make sure he knows which muscle to flex to make heat vision. I don't think it's like, they kind of, a lot of people kind of put the cart before the horse and make it like, he can't help but have his X-ray vision on. He can't help but use his heat vision. I think once he learned how to use it and what muscles to flex and how to activate it, it was very simple to be able to, hone in on how to use those powers. And I think it's the same thing when you talk about like General Zod. I mean, he was a 40-something scientist. I think he kind of figured out what Earth's powers, what Earth would do to him, what powers it would give to him. And he could kind of figure it out quickly how to use them. I don't think it was one of those things of like, again, he comes to the earth, oh, I can hear everything all of a sudden, and I can. No, I think that's like a skill you had to learn, and that's why I never liked when they do this, like a Kryptonian comes to Earth and suddenly he's bombarded or she's bombarded with all kinds of the powers and the different things that they have to learn how to control. It's not a question of trying to control the powers. It's a question of how do I activate them? How can I hear everything, but not everything, just what I'm trying to hear? You know what I mean? That's what I think it's different than, Marvel superheroes where I mean, in a sense, it's the same. And with Spider-Man, if you want to do the organic web shooters, I mean, he kind of just had to keep practicing until he could figure out what muscle to flex and the organic webbing comes out. You know what I mean? He can't just do that. And, once he knows what he's doing, it's not that difficult, but it's not like it's going to happen by accident. So again, and it's a similar thing also like with Daredevil in the Daredevil movie. I always hated that whole thing with the sound deprivation tank or whatever. I think that's like, again, you're supposed to be working in a fantasy environment. I don't think you like take it to a dramatically emphasized conclusion. I think you have to sort of see it as it's not nightmarish the way that they are trying to portray it to be. So I mean, I didn't like that either even in Marvel, some of the things like that where they try to play up the nightmarish qualities of having these powers. I mean, if that was the case, I mean, it's impossible for the guy to even live. I mean, he has to sleep in a sound deprivation tank. The other quote from one of these show TV clips is Superman gives Kara the costume and says, "I know it's colorful. It's just so that everyone knows we're good." And I guess this means they're going with the Ma Kent created the costumes for them, which I liked. That's the thing about like Gunn is that he goes back deep into the well of trying to get Silver Age stuff. He doesn't just stick with the the modern thing is the Superman costume comes from Krypton and they all kind of wore it. No, I mean he's going back to like Silver Age stuff, which is it was Ma Kent basically, using needles to knit together these costumes. I mean, it's like there's something endearing about that it's old timey. And so that's what I mean about how Gunn has these sensibilities. You know what I mean? He's got the sensibilities for this kind of thing. Now he doesn't, he's got his own weaknesses that he doesn't rein in often enough. But I'd rather have a guy like this in charge that has the sensibilities, knowing his stuff from the comics and trying to incorporate some of that old school stuff, and you would hope not intrude his own kind of bizarre humor into the project, which he does far too often. But there you have it. But anyway, that's just a couple of the little TV spots or whatever that they've been seeing on Twitter all day. But we've got the topic. I did not want to talk about this. I was not going to talk about this. But there's like, this is like a three-part episode that I feel like this keeps repeating itself, and it's finally going to the point where I feel like it needs to be talked about. So let's just get to it. I'm just building this up a little too much, but all right. So for starters, Millie Alcock made some kind of interview comment that drove the usual suspects wild because they just don't like it. Let's read what the original quote was. She said of her time on Game of Thrones, it prepared her for a particular kind of attention. Quote, "It definitely made me aware that simply existing as a woman in that space is something that people comment on. We have become very comfortable having this weird ownership of women's bodies. I can't really stop them. I can only be myself." Now, again, I don't really know how you can construed this comment as being something offensive. I don't really know what people had a problem with. This was like a problem that people had with this comment that I really wouldn't pay attention to, because it doesn't seem like there's anything there that is a strike at any audience member. Now, people you'll find are looking desperately for something to complain about. And it seems to be lately that they're targeting young actresses that have sort of vapid opinions of the audience and that are somewhat abrasive in their opinions about the audience. So just looking at this quote fast one more time. Her time on Game of Thrones, I guess the prequel, made me aware that simply existing as a woman in that space is something people comment on. Now, it's no surprise, and I've already commented on this a few weeks ago, that people have called her unattractive. And I mean, I said at the time as well that I probably wouldn't have cast her, but she's been cast and she reasonably looks like Supergirl, and we have to give her the benefit of the doubt that she'll do a good job. Now, if she had been race changed or somehow was completely different looking from the Kara Zor-El character, you'd have a leg to stand on. But the issue is that people are saying these things about her. She is only human and hears these things and is, obviously going to be offended by people repeatedly calling her homely. And she said, we've become very comfortable with this weird ownership of women's bodies. I can't really stop them. I can only be myself. Again, this is kind of, I think, playing into, it's kind of a feminist thought, but the thought that, men are going to have a overly interested impression of her body. If it's not a perfect 10, then, she's not going to be looked upon with a lot of favor in their eyes. That's kind of what she's trying to say. Now, again, this made plenty of ink spill. I didn't really think it was worth commenting on. I still don't think it's worth commenting on. I don't really find anything she says of any interest to me. I don't know why so many people do, but again, this is the game we're playing now, where every time we have an actress, we have to scrutinize what they're saying. We got to put it up on the biggest billboard possible, and we got to make sure that everyone knows that this actress hates us and disrespects us and whatever. Now, the new quote, she is speaking to Variety in a new article, and it says, her comments triggered a bunch of adult men on the internet, as usual. She's quoted as saying, I didn't even say men. I said people. And they got so angry. I was like, you're proving my point. You're proving my point. And it's hard to disagree with her there, too. Again, people are just like waiting to be outraged by this woman. And again, I don't even really know what she said that was outrageous the first time. Now, the problem is with this is that in her trying to explain that what she said was fairly inoffensive, she sticks her foot in her mouth once again. And this becomes a bigger problem that the usual suspects are more than happy to jump on. And the backlash, once again, going back to the quote, and the backlash is from a lot of people whose profiles have no photo, who are burner accounts, or someone's name and then dad of 4, Christian, which is hilarious to me. But I mean, whose opinion do you really care about? If you're ticking the right kind of people off, you're doing okay. Now, again, because she purposefully singled out Christian, a lot of people are saying that she's anti-Christian and her opinion here is meant to slap down Christians. And again, I think what she's trying to say, and doing a very poor job of it, but what she's trying to say is that it's basically, because she's trying to say, well, I didn't even say men. And then she's like pointing out that there is a segment of online, Twitter, or what have you, that are middle-aged men, Christian, allegedly. I mean, she's trying to say that they are demeaning her. And so the point is that the title Christian is sort of alleged. So again, she would have to go back on this and have to explain this again. But I have a feeling that's what she was trying to say. And again, now it's going to make the rounds and it's going to try to make the the movie, more bad will toward the movie, so that more ink will be spilled about how terrible it's going to be. And I mean, I feel like the problem with this is like the new game. Like I said, for the usual suspects, this is kind of what we do, because one of the problems is the usual suspects need a face for their outrage. Now, what I mean by that is, when the usual suspects, again, I'm talking about the big YouTubers, the big name guys, the guys you all know. I'm not going to even mention their names again. But when they were trying to get their clicks, when they were trying to go after the MCU, what did they do? They found Brie Larson running her mouth, saying something they didn't like, saying something that they could use to inflame a passion in these middle-aged guys who were offended at what she was saying. And they used that as a cudgel to sort of beat down anybody who was trying to support Marvel at the time. Now, again, this was semi-acceptable because it was in the woke era, and everybody was like, well, they completely feminized, feminism with Captain Marvel. They ruined that movie, and of course, Feige went into this other direction of doing the last decade's Marvel characters, and Sam Wilson, Captain America, and this and that. And so it was kind of passable at the time. But even at the time, I was saying, why are you making so many Brie Larson videos? And they started making jokes about it. I mean, Geeks and Gamers, they were saying, well, isn't that all we talk about? I think Ethan Van Sciver was acting like he was going to do 41 Brie Larson videos in a month or something, to try to catch up with what Geeks and Gamers was doing and what Nerdrotic was doing. And it's like, you could see that there was a pattern that they were following, because they found out what was successful. What was successful was taking some vapid opinion from some bubble-headed artist, an actress, and trying to pound that into the ground to get rage clicks. And that's all this is, and that's all this ever is, and that's all this ever will be. Now, of course, we move on over to Rachel Ziegler. And what happened with Rachel Ziegler? She was another vapid actress, didn't know how to not run her mouth, said a lot of dumb things. They ran with that, and again, they pounded that into the ground. I'm so sick of hearing of Rachel Ziegler, but we hear about her every day on YouTube. We hear about her every day on Twitter. And it's, again, I'm not really defending the actresses having condescending opinions and being brainless, vapid, artists that don't really care about what they're doing. But what I'm trying to say is, you can tell this is all performance art. Everybody takes these things and starts running with them. Now, there's the Gunverse, and the Gunverse is the next big target, because people want to get rid of the Gunverse. They want to take them down a peg. What do? We find some stupid quote that the next big actress that's going to represent that studio and that motion picture franchise, and we're going to take her down, because we're going to explain these comments, and she'll, again, not a great communicator. She digs herself into a hole, says more stupid stuff, and then we end up piling on her again. Now, I'm sure the next movie that's going to come out, wherever it is that, we haven't taken them down yet by, using a cudgel over some dumb vapid actress, will do it again too. And it's starting to repeat itself, this strange cycle, this news cycle, where we've got the usual suspects targeting a woman. And again, the woman, I'm not trying to say, is completely, totally innocent of being stupid in these cases, but this is all this is. And that's why I don't talk about it. That's why I don't cover it, because all it is rage bait. All it is trying to get clicks. And we do it over and over and over again. And we do it with the next season's debutante. We'll take her down a peg too, because she'll say something stupid, because they're all liberal and they all have, progressive ideas, and they're all going to have these lofty dreams of how their feminism is going to change cinema or television or whatever it is. And again, it's just the most useless exercise, and it is so stupid that we keep doing this. But again, it gets clicks. We'll wait and see if my video gets clicks because I put it in the title too. But again, I don't really see why this is a big deal. I don't care what she has to say. I don't care what Ziggler had to say. I didn't care what Brie Larson had to say. And now after like 6 or 7 years of rehabilitation, people are starting to give Brie Larson the time of day. Who cares? I don't care. And I don't see why anybody else should. But again, it's, I feel like at least in Millie Alcock's case, she had the most ridiculous quotes that are taken and being broadcast as being fighting words, because a lot of what she said here is really, inane and harmless. She doesn't do herself any favors by acting like, middle-aged Christian dads of 4 are, but again, if you're a 26-year-old or whatever she is, I read her age a lot, 25 years old. If you're a 25-year-old progressive trying to get in the movies and you see these middle-aged guys calling you ugly, saying that, you have no talent, you're going to be upset about it. You're going to lash out. You're going to get angry and fight back. Now, it's easy to say for you and me, just keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. Be a Jackie Robinson. Just do your job. Not everybody can do that, especially in this day and age. And a lot of studios are not going to tell a up-and-coming young woman, keep your mouth shut. It's just not going to happen. So, I mean, this is going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening frequently. And I feel like the more it happens, the more we feed into it happening again. So now we've got it happening 3 times. And like I said, what they do is they try to put a face to the controversy. If there's a film starring a woman that she says something out of line, we're going to try to beat her down with a cudgel of she is disrespecting the audience. Sometimes it may be correct. Sometimes it might not be correct. But again, that's the game we're playing now. And I think we deserve to shut out the noise. You know what I mean? Let's not hear this stupidity anymore. You know what I mean? Let's just let the movies speak for themselves and not try to sink them by analyzing what some vapid actresses' opinions are about anything, let alone life in general. All right. So again, we're carrying on along here at this episode. We got one more topic. I said I was going to talk about the recent news we have here about the resurrection of the Christ. We will talk about this one briefly. What better way than to end on Jesus? And here in the East Coast, we've got Pentecost coming up. So this is going to be a lot of fun to talk about this. Now, Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ sequel will now be splitting up, and the both movies are not coming out the same month. This is the new release schedule. The first part, The Resurrection of the Christ, Part 1, will come out May 6, 2027. So I believe that's Ascension Day. So they're not going to put it out on Good Friday. I figure they're going to need a lot more time for the special effects and the things that they're supposedly going to do with the battle in hell and with angels and all the stuff that's going on. I imagine that's going to need a lot of work. So it's understandable. And the Part 2 will be the following year, The Resurrection of the Christ Part 2, May 25th, 2028. So that is going to be probably Ascension Day 2 years from now, which is great. This is what this scene, this is a new picture Mel released. And I guess this is going to be the Ascension here. I'm not sure. But Mel Gibson was quoted here as saying, "I'm deeply grateful to my incredibly talented cast and crew for pouring their hearts into this production. Together we created something powerful. This film represents a major part of my life's work, and it has demanded everything of me as a filmmaker and as an artist. This is far more than a film to me. It's a mission I've carried for over 20 years to tell what I believe is the most important story in human history. Reuniting with many of my original collaborators from The Passion of the Christ, true masters of their craft, allowed us to bring this story to the screen exactly as I envisioned it, with the tremendous support of my longtime partners, Adam and the team at Lionsgate." So there you have it. Apparently, shooting has wrapped, like we said a couple weeks ago, and we're now going into post. And again, really exciting times here because the name of Christ is being praised once again by another movie by Mel Gibson, and it's going to turn out to be a trilogy now. And again, I'm really excited about this movie. I mean, I like to see what's going to happen because it is so ambitious. Like we were talking about, it's going to have Old Testament characters. We're going to see the past. We're going to see hell. We're going to see heaven. We're going to see the future. This is going to be really something. All right, so let me know what you think in the comments below about the Resurrection of the Christ Part 1 or 2, and let me know what you think about any of the subjects we talked about today. I will let you go, and we've gone on for over an hour here, but time well spent, if you ask me, and I know nobody's asked me. All right, so until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.